Alex Morgan pressed his small face against the cold window of the human embassy. The alien world outside looked strange and scary. Red dirt covered everything as far as he could see. The sky was orange instead of blue like back home on Earth. Giant creatures with fur and sharp teeth walked around the courtyard below. The 8-year-old boy watched. The Valtharan warriors practiced their fighting. They looked like wolves that could walk on 2 legs. Each one was taller than any human Alex had ever seen. Their muscles bulged under thick gray and brown fur. When they growled at each other, Alex could hear the sound through the thick walls. "Stay away from the windows, Alex," his mother Lisa called from across the room. She was busy reading reports on her computer. Important papers covered her desk. His father Ryan was somewhere deep in the embassy working on the alien machines that kept their air clean and their lights working. Alex did not move from the window. He had been stuck inside this building for 3 whole weeks. His parents said he could not go outside because the meetings were too important. The grown-ups from Earth were trying to make friends with the Valtharans. If things went well, the 2 species could help each other. If things went bad, there might be war. The boy did not understand why making friends had to be so hard. Back on Earth, he just walked up to kids in the playground and asked if they wanted to play. Here, everything was different. The aliens did not smile. They did not laugh. They just stared at humans with their bright yellow eyes and made low rumbling sounds in their throats. A loud bang made Alex jump. The door to the main hall had slammed open. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside their room. Alex heard his mother take a quick breath. She saved her work and stood up fast. "Alex, come here right now," Lisa said in her serious voice. Before Alex could move, 3 Valtharan warriors entered their room. The one in front was huge even for his kind. Black fur covered his body except for a white patch on his chest. Gold metal decorations hung from straps across his shoulders. His yellow eyes looked around the room like he was hunting for something dangerous. "I am AwaHFY Krex," the big alien said in rough English. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "I have come to see the human cubs." Lisa stepped forward and bowed her head slightly. "AwaHFY, I'm Ambassador Lisa Morgan. This is my son, Alex. My husband, Ryan, is working in the lower levels if you wish to meet him as well." Krex ignored Lisa completely. His huge head turned toward Alex, who was still standing by the window. The alien took 3 slow steps forward. Each step made the floor shake a little. Alex wanted to run, but his legs would not move. The AwaHFY stopped right in front of Alex. He was so tall that Alex had to bend his neck all the way back to see his face. Krex leaned down and sniffed the air around the boy. His black nose was bigger than Alex's whole hand. "This is your cub?" Krex asked without looking at Lisa. "Yes, AwaHFY. Alex is our son." Krex made a deep sound in his throat that sounded like disappointment. He walked around Alex in a slow circle, looking at him from every angle. The other 2 warriors watched and made soft growling noises to each other. "How old is this cub?" Krex demanded. "Alex is 8 years old," Lisa answered. Alex could hear worry in her voice now. 8 cycles? Krex sounded surprised. "But he is so small, so weak. Where are his claws? Where are his fangs? How does he hunt? How does he fight?" Alex felt his cheeks get hot. He was not the biggest kid in his class back on Earth, but he was not weak. He could climb trees and run fast and swim across the whole community pool without stopping. "Humans develop differently than Valtharans," Lisa explained carefully. "Our children grow more slowly. They learn through education and play rather than combat." "Play?" Krex said the word like it tasted bad. "You waste time on play when you should be teaching strength?" One of the other warriors stepped forward. "AwaHFY, look at his hands. No claws, look at his teeth. They are flat like a plant eater. This cub could not survive one day in a real pack." Krex nodded slowly. "The humans claim they are strong enough to be our allies. But they raise cubs like this? Cubs that cannot fight? Cubs that do not know their place in the pack order?" Alex felt angry tears starting in his eyes. These aliens were talking about him like he was not even there. Like he was some kind of broken toy. "Alex is intelligent and creative," Lisa said, her voice getting stronger. "Human children learn to solve problems and work together. These are valuable skills. Problems are solved with strength," Krex growled. "The weak must serve the strong. This is the way of nature. Your species coddles weakness instead of removing it. How can we trust allies who do not understand basic pack law?" The AwaHFY leaned down until his huge face was level with Alex's. His yellow eyes stared right into the boy's brown ones. Alex could smell his breath, which was like meat and metal. You are unfit for any pack, small cub, Krex said quietly. In our society, the weak are cast out so they do not drag down the strong. Your parents have failed to teach you your proper place. Alex's hands made fists at his sides. He wanted to tell this alien that he was not weak. He wanted to prove that humans were just as good as Veltherans. But the words would not come out of his mouth. Krex stood up to his full height and turned to Lisa. These talks are finished. A species that raises such pathetic cubs has nothing to offer the Veltheran Empire. We do not ally with those who accept weakness in their pack. War Alpha, please reconsider, Lisa started to say. The decision is final, Krex cut her off. All humans will leave our space within 7 days. If any return, they will be destroyed as enemies of the Empire. The three warriors marched out of the room as quickly as they had entered. Lisa ran to her computer and started sending urgent messages to the other humans in the embassy. Alex heard her talking fast into her communication device, trying to reach his father. Alex stayed by the window and watched the Veltharan warriors in the courtyard below. They looked proud and strong. They belonged here on this alien world with its red dirt and orange sky. For the first time in his young life, Alex felt truly small. 15 years had passed since Alex Morgan last stood on an alien world. Now he was Commander Morgan, and the scared 8-year-old boy was gone. In his place stood a man who had learned that being different could be a strength instead of a weakness. Alex walked through the training center on Luna Base, watching his team practice. These were not regular soldiers. The Earth military had plenty of those. These people were something new. They called themselves the Terran Diplomatic Corps, but most of the galaxy knew them by their nickname, the Legion. Commander, the new recruits are ready for evaluation, said Emma Carter as she approached. Emma was Alex's second in command. She had been kicked out of the regular Navy 5 years ago for refusing to follow orders during a battle. Her superior officers said her tactics were too strange and risky. Alex thought her tactics were brilliant. Emma was short and thin with red hair that she kept tied back in a tight knot. She did not look like a warrior, but she could read a battle situation faster than any computer. While other commanders sent their ships in straight lines, Emma made them dance through space like leaves in the wind. How many this time? Alex asked as they walked toward the training room. 12, all rejects from somewhere else. Alex smiled. The Legion only recruited people who did not fit in other places. The regular military wanted soldiers who followed orders without question. The diplomatic service wanted smooth talkers who never made waves. The Legion wanted people who could think in ways that no one expected. They entered a large room where 12 men and women stood in a loose line. Alex looked at each face carefully. He could always tell which ones would work out and which ones would not. It was not about being strong or smart. It was about being willing to understand enemies instead of just fighting them. I am Commander Morgan, Alex said to the group. You are here because someone somewhere decided you were not good enough for their organization. Maybe you asked too many questions. Maybe you cared too much about doing the right thing instead of the easy thing. Maybe you just saw problems in ways that made other people uncomfortable. A tall man with dark skin raised his hand. Sir, what exactly does the Legion do? The recruitment officer was not very clear. What is your name and background? Alex asked. Jake Sullivan, sir, former corporate negotiator. I was fired for refusing to cheat alien trading partners out of their fair share of profits. Alex nodded. Jake would probably work out fine. The Legion solves problems that cannot be solved with guns or money. We specialize in understanding how other species think and feel. Then we use that understanding to find solutions that work for everyone. A woman with brown hair and serious eyes spoke up without raising her hand. That sounds like social work, not military service. Name and background? Alex asked. Nina Brooks. Xenobiology doctorate from Mars University. I was dismissed from my research position for arguing that alien psychology should be studied as carefully as alien anatomy. Alex smiled. Nina would definitely work out. Dr. Brooks, what do you think is the difference between social work and military strategy? Nina thought for a moment. Social work helps individuals. Military strategy deals with large groups. But the basic principles are the same. You have to understand what people need and want before you can change their behavior. Exactly. The Legion fights wars by preventing them. We win battles by making sure they never happen. Traditional military thinking says you defeat your enemies. We prefer to turn enemies into allies. An older man with gray hair and gentle eyes spoke next. I am Dr. Sam Pierce, former military medic. I was transferred to desk duty for spending too much time treating enemy wounded instead of just our own troops. Alex looked at Sam carefully. The Legion needed a medic, but the wrong kind of doctor could ruin everything. Dr. Pierce, if you had to choose between saving the life of a human soldier or an alien enemy, which would you choose? I would save whoever needed help the most urgently, Sam answered without hesitation. Pain is pain, regardless of what species feels it. Even if saving the alien might help them kill more humans later. Sam met Alex's eyes steadily. Even then, the moment we decide that some lives matter less than others, we become the bad guys in someone else's story. Alex nodded with satisfaction. Sam would work out perfectly. The training lasted 6 months. Regular military boot camp focused on following orders and mastering weapons. Legion training was completely different. Recruits learned alien languages and customs. They studied psychology and game theory. They practiced negotiating under pressure and finding creative solutions to impossible problems. Emma taught tactical thinking that confused traditional military minds. Instead of overwhelming enemy forces, she showed recruits how to make enemies want to stop fighting. Jake taught the art of reading body language and voice tones across species barriers. Nina explained how different types of brains processed fear, anger, and hope. Sam demonstrated how showing mercy to enemies often created more loyal allies than showing strength. But the most important lessons came from Alex himself. He taught his team that their greatest weapon was empathy. The ability to understand how others felt and thought was more powerful than any gun or bomb. Most military units train to be feared, Alex explained during one lesson. We train to be understood. When your enemies know that you truly comprehend their position, they become much more willing to listen to alternatives. The Legion's first real test came when the Zentari collective attacked human colonies near the edge of known space. The Zentari were insect-like aliens who lived in rigid hive societies. They believed that all other species were either rulers or slaves, with no middle ground possible. The regular Earth fleet engaged the Zentari in conventional space battles, while Alex took his small team directly to the Zentari homeworld. They did not bring weapons or demands for surrender. Instead, they brought detailed studies of Zentari history, culture, and social structure. The Zentari queen received them in her massive throne room, surrounded by thousands of worker drones. She was twice the size of her subjects, with wings that sparkled like metal and eyes that could see in all directions at once. Why do you come to us without weapons, mammals? The queen demanded through her translator device. Alex bowed deeply, showing the same respect he would give to a human leader. Your Majesty, we come to offer knowledge. We have studied your people's history and discovered something important. The queen leaned forward on her crystal throne. Speak. Your ancient laws of warfare, written by your first queen mother, state that honorable conquest requires defeating enemies who have the chance to fight back. Attacking defenseless colonies violates your own sacred traditions. The throne room fell silent. Every drone stopped moving. The queen's multiple eyes focused on Alex with laser intensity. Nina stepped forward with a data tablet. We have translated the original law codes from your archives. The 47th statute clearly states that true victory comes only from defeating worthy opponents, not from harvesting the weak. Jake added his own information. Your current military commanders appear to have forgotten this law in their eagerness for quick expansion. But forgetting sacred law brings shame to the hive. The queen was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke in a voice that carried across the enormous room. You mammals know our laws better than our own generals. We study those we wish to understand, Alex replied. Understanding leads to respect. Respect leads to honor. And what do you propose, mammals? End the attacks on our colonies. In return, we will help you find worthy opponents who can give your warriors the honorable battles your laws require. There are many aggressive species in this galaxy who would welcome the chance to test themselves against Zentari strength. The Queen considered this offer. Within 3 days, the Zentari fleet withdrew from human space and began seeking new challenges among the warlike Cardani Empire instead. The humans had won without firing a single shot. Word of the Legion's success spread through diplomatic channels across the galaxy. Species that had never taken humans seriously began requesting their services. The Altarian Republic asked for help ending a civil war that had lasted 50 years. The Synthetic Consciousness Coalition wanted assistance in negotiating with organic species who feared artificial intelligence. Each mission taught Alex and his team new lessons about the diversity of intelligent life. They learned that every species had different concepts of honor, justice, and strength. What seemed like weakness to one culture might be the highest virtue to another. The Legion grew slowly but steadily. New recruits came from every human world, bringing different skills and perspectives. Some were former criminals who understood how desperate people think. Others were artists who could see beauty in alien cultures. A few were philosophers who enjoyed debating the meaning of existence with non-human minds. Alex made sure that his team never became arrogant about their successes. Every victory taught them something new about their own limitations. Every failure showed them gaps in their understanding that needed to be filled. But through it all, Alex remembered the lesson he had learned as a frightened child on the Veltharan homeworld. Being rejected by those who valued only traditional strength had forced him to find other kinds of power. Now he led a group of humans who proved every day that understanding your enemies was more effective than conquering them. The Legion was no Lothi. Message arrived on a Tuesday morning while Alex was reviewing reports from the Outer Rim territories. His aide knocked twice on the door before entering the command center aboard the Legion flagship Harmony. "Commander, we have received a priority transmission through Galactic Council channels," Lieutenant Ross said, holding a data pad with both hands. The young officer looked nervous, which was unusual. Ross had been with the Legion for 2 years and rarely got excited about routine communications. Alex looked up from his desk. "What makes this one special, Lieutenant?" "Sir, it bears the official seal of the Veltharan Empire." Alex felt his coffee cup slip slightly in his hand. He set it down carefully and held out his hand for the data pad. 23 years had passed since he had seen that crimson seal with its crossed claws and twin moons. The message was brief and formal, written in the clipped style that Veltharans used for all official business. To Commander Alex Morgan of the Terran Diplomatic Corps, the Veltharan Empire requests immediate assistance with a crisis that threatens our survival. AwaHFY Krex, Supreme Pack Leader, formally invites the Legion to our homeworld for emergency consultation. Time is critical. Please respond with all speed. End transmission. Alex read the message 3 times before the words fully sank in. The same species that had banished all humans from their space was now asking for help. The same AwaHFY who had called him unfit for any pack was now requesting his services. Lieutenant Ross waited patiently while Alex processed the information. Finally, the young officer spoke. "Sir, should I prepare a standard diplomatic response?" "No," Alex said slowly. "Get me a direct channel to the Veltharan homeworld. I want to speak with AwaHFY Krex personally." 30 minutes later, Alex stood in the communication center watching technicians adjust their long-range transmitters. The image that appeared on the main screen made him take a sharp breath. Krex had aged dramatically since their last meeting. The proud AwaHFY who had once seemed invincible now looked old and tired. His black fur had turned silver around his muzzle and ears. His powerful shoulders were stooped, and his bright yellow eyes had dimmed to a pale gold. "Commander Morgan," Krex said in his rumbling voice. Even across the vast distance of space, Alex could hear the strain in those words. "AwaHFY Krex," Alex replied formally. "I received your message. What crisis requires the Legion's assistance?" Krex was quiet for a moment, as if the words were difficult to say. "The Devourers have returned." Alex felt cold despite the warm air in the communication center. Every species in the galaxy knew the stories about the Devourers, though most considered them legends. Ancient records spoke of creatures that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing behind but dead rock floating in space. "When did they appear?" Alex asked. 6 months ago, at the edge of our territory. We thought our fleets could handle them." Krex's ears flattened against his skull, a sign of shame in Veltharan body language. We were wrong. How many worlds have you lost? 17 colonies. Nearly 4 million of our people evacuated to refugee centers on other planets. Krex looked directly into the camera. Commander Morgan, my warriors are the finest in the galaxy. We have conquered every enemy we have ever faced. But these creatures, they do not fight like any opponent we understand. Alex leaned forward. Explain. They ignore our challenges to single combat. They do not respond to shows of strength or dominance. When we attack their ships, they simply absorb the damage and keep coming. Our pack tactics mean nothing to them. Krex paused, his breathing heavy. They treat us like we are no more dangerous than insects. The irony was not lost on Alex. The Valtherans, who had built their entire society around being the strongest predators in any environment, were being treated the way they had always treated weaker species. Why come to us? Alex asked. You have allies among other warrior cultures. We have tried everything, Krex admitted. The Mordak Empire sent their battle fleets. The Cardani clans offered their most experienced fighters. The Zentari Collective provided their finest soldiers. Nothing works. The Devourers defeat every conventional military force we send against them. Alex understood now. The Valtherans had exhausted all options that involved traditional displays of power. Now they were desperate enough to try something different. AwaHFY, you rejected humanity because you said we were too weak to be useful allies. What has changed? Krex was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that Alex had never heard before. We have learned that there are different kinds of strength. The Legion has achieved victories that our greatest warriors could not match. You have solved problems that pure force could not overcome. He paused again. We need solutions, not just stronger weapons. Alex could hear Emma, Jake, Nina, and Sam discussing the situation quietly behind him. They had all read the historical files about the Devourers. If the ancient records were accurate, this was a threat that could spread across the entire galaxy. I need more information before we can help, Alex said. Full tactical reports, biological scans of the creatures, details about their attack patterns. All data will be transmitted immediately, Krex promised. Commander, there is something else you should know. What? The Devourers are not randomly choosing their targets. They are moving in a specific pattern toward the galactic core. At their current rate of advance, they will reach Earth's solar system in approximately 18 months. Alex felt his team go completely silent behind him. This was not just about helping an old enemy. This was about protecting humanity itself. How long do we have before your next major colony falls? Alex asked. The Carthage system will be under attack within 2 weeks. It contains our largest military shipyard and nearly 50 million civilians. Alex made his decision. We will leave for your space immediately. Expect our arrival in 4 days. Commander, Krex said quietly. I remember what I said to you as a child. I called you unfit for any pack. I said your species was too weak to be our allies. The old AwaHFY lowered his head in what Alex recognized as a formal gesture of apology. I was wrong about many things. The transmission ended, leaving Alex alone with his thoughts and his team. Emma was the first to speak. It could still be a trap, she said. The Valtherans are not known for admitting weakness. Jake shook his head. Did you see his body language? That was genuine fear, not deception. Something has the most powerful military species in the galaxy completely terrified. Nina was already studying preliminary data that had arrived with the message. These biological readings are unlike anything in our databases. The Devourers appear to be part machine and part living organism. They operate more like a natural disaster than an army. Sam was reading medical reports about Valtheran refugees. The psychological trauma among their survivors is severe. These are warriors who have never known defeat, and now they are fleeing in panic from an enemy they cannot understand. Alex looked around at his team. These people had followed him through dozens of dangerous missions. They trusted his judgment even when it led them into situations that seemed impossible. The Valtherans rejected us when we offered friendship, Alex said. Now they are asking for help when they have nowhere else to turn. Some people would call this justice. What do you call it? Emma asked. Alex thought about the frightened boy he had been standing in that embassy room while alien warriors decided his entire species was worthless. He thought about the years of training and hard work that had led to this moment. I call it an opportunity, he said finally. An opportunity to prove that helping your enemies is more powerful than defeating them. The Legion began preparations immediately. They would take their fastest ships and their most experienced negotiators. More importantly, they would bring something the Veltharans had never learned to value: the willingness to understand an enemy before trying to fight it. As the Harmony prepared to jump to hyperspace, Alex stood in his quarters looking at the star charts. Somewhere out there, creatures older than recorded history were consuming worlds that had stood for millions of years. Traditional military thinking would focus on finding bigger weapons to destroy them. Alex planned to find out what they really wanted instead. The rejected cub was returning to the pack that had cast him out. But this time, he would not be seeking acceptance. He would be offering salvation to those wise enough to accept it. The journey to Valtharan space would take 4 days. Alex spent the time studying every piece of data about the Devourers, looking for patterns that warrior cultures had missed. Somewhere in their behavior was the key to stopping them. He just had to be smart enough to find it. The Valtharan homeworld looked exactly as Alex remembered it from his childhood, but everything else had changed. The spaceport that had once buzzed with military ships and trade vessels now felt like a hospital. Wounded warriors lay on medical beds in the open air because the facilities were full. Refugee families huddled together with whatever belongings they had managed to carry. Alex walked down the ramp of his shuttle with Emma, Jake, Nina, and Sam behind him. A small group of Veltharan officials waited to greet them, but these were not the proud warriors he remembered. Their fur was patchy and dull. Their powerful frames looked thin. Worst of all, their golden eyes held something Alex had never seen in a Veltharan before: complete fear. General Vera Nightfang stepped forward first. She was War Alpha Krex's daughter, and the current commander of all Valtharan military forces. Like her father, she was larger than most of her species, but age and stress had marked her heavily. Gray streaks ran through her brown fur, and her left arm hung in a medical brace. "Commander Morgan," Vera said formally, "welcome to our world. My father is waiting in the Great Pack Hall for your briefing." As they walked through the spaceport, Alex saw the full extent of the crisis. Thousands of refugee Valtharans filled every available space. These were not just civilians either. Many wore the decorations of seasoned warriors, soldiers who had fled battles they could not win. A young Veltharan cub, probably about the same age Alex had been during his first visit, stared at the human group with wide eyes. His mother quickly pulled him closer, but not before Alex saw something that broke his heart. The cub was thin and scared, looking nothing like the fierce young warriors he remembered from his childhood. The evacuation from the Outer Rim worlds was difficult, Vera explained as they walked. "We had to leave everything behind. Many families are living in conditions they have never experienced before." Jake looked around at the crowds. "How many refugees total?" "Nearly 12 million across 7 worlds. We are running out of space and supplies." Vera's voice carried the exhaustion of someone who had not slept properly in weeks. The embassy compound where Alex had lived as a child was now a refugee center. Human aid workers moved between Valtharan families, distributing food and medical supplies. Alex recognized the irony immediately. Humans were helping the same species that had once banished them from this system. "Your people arrived 2 weeks ago with emergency supplies," Vera said, noticing Alex's expression. They did not wait for official requests or diplomatic approval. They simply came and began helping. Nina was taking readings with a handheld scanner. "The stress hormones in the air are off the charts. Your population is experiencing massive psychological trauma." "Our warriors do not know how to process defeat," Vera admitted. "For 1,000 generations, we have been the apex predators of this region. Now our strongest fighters run from an enemy they cannot even scratch." They reached the Great Pack Hall where Alex had first been declared unfit for any pack. The massive building looked the same from the outside, but the inside told a different story. Instead of proud tapestries showing Valtharan victories, the walls were covered with tactical displays showing system after system falling to the Devourers. War Alpha Krex waited at the center of the hall, surrounded by his senior officers and technical staff. The old leader looked even worse in person than he had during their video call. His silver fur was thin in places, and his hands shook slightly as he reviewed reports. When Krex saw Alex enter the hall, he stood up slowly. The two beings stared at each other across the room where their first meeting had gone so badly, 23 years earlier. "Commander Morgan," Krex said in his deep voice. "You have returned." "War Alpha Krex," Alex replied formally. "We came as quickly as possible. The Valtharan leader approached Alex with careful steps. When he was close enough to speak privately, he stopped and looked down into the human's eyes. "I remember you as a small cub," Krex said quietly. "I called you weak and unfit. I said your species had nothing to offer us." "I remember," Alex said simply. "I was wrong." The words seemed to cause Krex physical pain. We were the ones who were truly weak. We understood only one kind of strength, and when we faced something that could not be intimidated or overpowered, we became helpless. Alex nodded. "Show me what you are dealing with." The briefing took place around a massive holographic display in the center of the hall. Vera activated the system, and a three-dimensional map of Valtharan space appeared above them. Red markers showed the worlds that had already fallen to the Devourers. Yellow markers indicated worlds currently under attack. Green markers showed the remaining safe systems, but there were not many of those left. "The pattern is clear," Vera explained, manipulating the display to show the timeline of attacks. "They began at our outer border and moved steadily inward. Each world falls within days of the first attack." Sam was studying medical reports on his datapad. "What happens to the populations on conquered worlds?" "We do not know," Krex admitted. "No one has ever returned from a world the Devourers have claimed. Long-range scans show that the planets become completely lifeless within weeks." Emma pointed to the tactical data. "Your combat reports indicate that conventional weapons have no effect. Have you tried any non-military approaches?" "Such as what?" Vera asked. "Communication attempts, peace negotiations, even just studying their behavior patterns." Several Valtharan officers made disgusted sounds. One of them, a scarred veteran named Commander Rex, stepped forward. "You suggest we should try to talk to these monsters?" Rex growled. "They are destroyers, nothing more. The only language they understand is violence." Jake looked at the behavioral data on his scanner. "Actually, that's not what your own reports suggest. The Devourers follow very specific patterns. They target certain types of planets while ignoring others. They use predictable attack formations. They even retreat from battles when the conditions are not favorable." "What are you saying?" Krex asked. Nina had been quietly analyzing the biological scans of captured Devourer technology. "These creatures are not mindless destroyers. They are following some kind of programming or instinct. Look at this data." She activated her own display showing detailed scans of Devourer ship components, part machine, part organism, but the biological components are all focused on ecosystem analysis. They are studying the worlds they attack before they consume them. Alex felt the first stirring of understanding. "They are not invaders." "Then what are they?" Vera demanded. Alex looked around the room at the faces of beings who had spent their entire lives believing that every problem could be solved with superior firepower. "They are maintenance workers." The hall fell completely silent. Even the sounds of refugees outside seemed to fade away. "Explain," Krex ordered. Alex called up the historical data he had been studying during the journey. The ancient records speak of the Devourers as a force that appears when ecosystems become damaged beyond natural repair. What if they were originally created as a biological tool? Nina's eyes widened as she understood. A cleanup crew, something designed to break down damaged environments and prepare them for new growth. "But that would mean," Vera started to say, "it would mean that something has activated their programming after thousands of years of dormancy," Alex finished. "They are not trying to conquer your worlds. They are trying to restore them to some baseline condition." Commander Rex made a sound of disbelief. "That is impossible. Our worlds are not damaged. They are thriving centers of civilization." Jake was studying the pattern of attacks on his datapad. "Actually, look at this. Every world they have targeted shows signs of heavy industrial development, strip mining, or ecological damage from rapid expansion." Emma nodded slowly. "They are not attacking your strongest worlds. They are attacking your most environmentally stressed worlds." The implications hit everyone in the room at the same time. The Devourers were not evil invaders seeking conquest. They were an ancient system carrying out their original function, treating Valtharan civilization as a form of ecological damage that needed to be cleaned up. "If this is true," Krex said slowly, "then fighting them is useless." "Worse than useless," Alex agreed. "Fighting them just confirms to their programming that you are a hostile force that needs to be removed." "Then how do we stop them?" Vera asked. Alex looked around the room at the desperate faces of the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy. We do not stop them. We redirect them. Over the next several hours, Alex and his team explained their theory in detail. The Devourers could not be defeated because they were not really enemies. They were tools that had been activated by some unknown trigger, following programming that was older than recorded history. The key is to give them what they are looking for, Nina explained. Damaged ecosystems that actually need restoration. Where would we find such places? Vera asked. Sam pulled up galactic survey data. There are hundreds of dead worlds in the neutral zone, systems that were strip-mined centuries ago and then abandoned, planets that were damaged by ancient wars and never recovered. You want us to lead these creatures to dead worlds? Commander Rex asked. We want to offer them a better alternative, Alex corrected. Give them work that matches their programming in places where their services are actually needed. Krex was quiet for a long time, processing this completely different approach to the crisis. Finally, he spoke. The next 3 days changed everything for the Valtheran Empire. For the first time in their history, their greatest warriors learned to think like diplomats instead of conquerors. Alex worked directly with Valtheran scientists to develop the biological communication system. Dr. Sam Pierce spent hours with their medical teams, studying devourer tissue samples that had been recovered from battle sites. The organic components were unlike anything in known biology, but they followed patterns that suggested artificial design. These cellular structures are definitely engineered, Sam explained to the research team. Someone built these creatures for a specific purpose millions of years ago. Nina worked with Valtheran ecologists to identify damaged worlds in nearby systems. The galaxy was full of planets that had been strip-mined, poisoned by industrial accidents or left barren by ancient wars. Finding suitable targets for the Devourers was not difficult. The Kelvos system has 3 dead worlds that are perfect, Nina reported during one planning session. They were heavily mined 500 years ago, and then abandoned when the resources ran out. The ecosystems never recovered. Jake spent his time teaching Valtheran officers how to read Devourer behavioral patterns. This was the hardest part of the entire operation, because it required warriors to think like their enemies instead of simply trying to destroy them. Watch how they move through space, Jake explained to a group of ship captains. They are not hunting for prey. They are surveying ecosystems. Every scan they take, every probe they send to a planet's surface is gathering environmental data. Emma worked with General Vera to completely redesign Valtheran fleet tactics. Instead of attack formations designed to deliver maximum firepower, they needed communication arrays that could broadcast biological signals across vast distances. This goes against every instinct we have, Vera admitted as they studied the new ship configurations. We are trained to overwhelm enemies with superior force. The Devourers are not enemies, Emma reminded her. They are workers following ancient instructions. You need to think of this as giving directions to someone who is lost, not defeating someone who wants to hurt you. The breakthrough came when Sam discovered how to synthesize the chemical signals that Devourers use to communicate with each other. The process required growing specialized organic transmitters in laboratory conditions, but it worked. For the first time, humans and Valtherans could speak to the ancient creatures in their own language. War Alpha Krex observed every stage of the preparation with growing amazement. He had ruled the Valtheran Empire for 30 years, leading them through countless military campaigns. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for warfare that involved understanding enemies instead of destroying them. Commander Morgan, Krex said privately after watching Jake train a group of young officers in psychological analysis, your methods are unlike anything we have ever attempted. They work, Alex replied simply. But how did you learn to think this way? Even among humans, such approaches must be rare. Alex was quiet for a moment, remembering the frightened boy who had once stood in the same building. You taught me, War Alpha. When you rejected me as unfit for the pack, you forced me to find other kinds of strength. Krex's ears drooped with shame. I caused you great pain. You gave me a gift, Alex corrected. You showed me that being different could be more valuable than fitting in. Every member of my team learned the same lesson in their own way. We are all people who were rejected by someone somewhere for not being what they expected. The test came when Devourer scouts arrived at the edge of the Carthex system. Long-range sensors detected 5 of the massive biomechanical ships moving toward the inhabited worlds. Under normal circumstances, the Valtheran fleet would have engaged them immediately with all available firepower. Instead, a single ship approached the Devourer formation. The UES Harmony carried Alex, his team, and a volunteer crew of Valtherans who had learned to set aside 1,000 years of military tradition. Range to target? Alex asked as they closed the distance. 50,000 kilometers, reported the ship's captain, a young Valtheran named Lieutenant Swiftclaw. They are not responding to our approach with hostile actions. Through the bridge windows, Alex could see the lead Devourer ship. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of their cruiser. The hull was a mixture of metal and organic tissue that pulsed with internal energy. Weapon pods bristled along its surface, but none of them were aimed at the approaching human vessel. Beginning biological signal transmission, Nina announced from her station. She had spent the past 3 days programming their message into the chemical language that Devourers understood. The transmission was complex, containing multiple layers of meaning. On the surface level, it identified the approaching ship as neutral observers seeking communication. Deeper layers carried environmental data about the Kelvos system, showing damaged worlds that matched Devourer search parameters. Signal sent, Nina reported. Now we wait. The wait lasted 47 minutes. Alex felt every second stretch like an hour as they watched the massive alien ships for any sign of response. The bridge crew was completely silent, afraid that any sound might break the delicate moment. Finally, the lead Devourer ship responded. Its hull flickered with patterns of colored light that Nina's instruments translated into chemical signals. The message was simple but profound. Query acknowledged. Data requests specify location of damaged ecosystems requiring restoration. They are asking for directions, Jake said with barely controlled excitement. Nina sent the coordinates for the Kelvos system along with detailed environmental surveys showing the extent of damage on each world. She also included data about other dead systems throughout the region, offering the Devourers more work than they could complete in decades. The response came much faster this time. The lead ship's light patterns shifted to what Nina's computers translated as mission parameters updated, proceeding to designated restoration zones. One by one, the 5 Devourer ships changed course away from the inhabited Karthek worlds. They formed a new formation and began moving toward the empty Kelvos system, where their services were actually needed. Did it work? Lieutenant Swiftclaw asked in disbelief. Alex watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace before answering. Send a message to AwaHFY Krex. Tell him the Karthek system is safe. The news spread through Valtheran space faster than their fastest ships. For the first time since the crisis began, an entire system had been saved without a single shot being fired. More importantly, the method could be repeated anywhere Devourers appeared. Over the following weeks, Legion teams worked with Valtheran fleets to redirect the remaining Devourer groups. Each encounter became easier, as both species learned to refine their communication techniques. Instead of consuming inhabited worlds, the ancient creatures began the slow work of restoring dead planets to life. The formal ceremony took place in the same great pack hall where Alex had first been rejected as a child. This time the room was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had sent observers to witness the signing of the new alliance between the Valtharan Empire and the Terran Federation. AwaHFY Krex wore his finest ceremonial armor, but the decoration seemed less important than the expression in his golden eyes. When he looked at Alex now, there was no judgment or disappointment. There was only respect earned through shared struggle. 23 years ago, I stood in this room and declared humans unfit to be our allies, Krex said as he addressed the assembled crowd. I believed that strength could only be measured in claws and fangs and the ability to dominate others through force. The old AwaHFY paused, looking around at the faces of his own people mixed with humans and other species. I was wrong. True strength lies in understanding your enemies well enough to turn them into friends. True wisdom means solving problems instead of simply overpowering them. Krex turned to face Alex directly. Commander Morgan, you were never unfit for any pack. You were meant to lead a pack of your own. Alex stepped forward to sign the alliance documents. As he wrote his name, he thought about the journey from that frightened 8-year-old boy to this moment. Every rejection, every challenge, every moment of doubt had led to this opportunity to prove that different kinds of strength could coexist. AwaHFY, Alex said as he finished signing. You did teach me something valuable all those years ago. You showed me that being rejected by those who only value traditional power can force you to discover better ways of achieving your goals. The ceremony concluded with representatives from both species sharing a formal meal. Alex found himself sitting next to General Vera, who had become one of the strongest supporters of the new diplomatic approaches. My daughter wants to join the Legion when she is old enough, Vera said as they ate. She says she wants to learn to fight with her mind instead of just her claws. Alex smiled. We would be honored to train her. As the celebration continued around them, Alex stepped outside onto a balcony overlooking the city. The refugee camps were gone now, replaced by new construction projects. Felter and families were returning to their homes on worlds that were Noel,